it does feel really different now, where like I could see that the company would maybe just like want to be like, we're terminating employment, the end, no reasons.
On today's episode, we talk about everything from whether or not it's time for you to get an exec coach, all the way to what to do if you find out your employees are attending No Kings protest. It's a spicy one, so make sure to check us out and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our latest episodes. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Ethena, the company that pays for my and Roxanne's salary. If you are looking for better AI-powered compliance training, check us out at Ethena. You have shared a couple of times that you have an exec coach that you partner with. And I think, if I recall this correctly, this coach is a former CEO as well, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Multiple CEO. Yeah.
Multiple CEO. And you've been partnering with her for a little while now. Tell me a little bit more about how you decided it was time to get an executive coach and how you went about then finding an exec coach that would suit your needs.
Totally. So to zoom out, we worked with an exec coach and my co-founder Ann and I really early on in the company, and that was kind of a co-founder coach is like how we used her. She's an exec coach. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
Amy Jen, we've had her on the podcast. We should have her again. I feel like she's got like a wealth of knowledge. And
She's
for
great.
that time, Ann and I decided we wanted to get an exec coach almost as like a proactive like marriage counselor, because co-founder dynamics are really challenging. Ann and I had actually never worked together. We really didn't know each other at all before starting the company. And it's not that we were like fighting or anything like that, but we just recognized like we are signing up for this journey. Like we are two very different people. It will be really helpful to have someone help us like navigate different dynamics. So for example, Amy really helped us recognize that like the way I would frame certain things made Anne really stressed out because she thought I was saying like, let's drop everything and do this idea I've had for, 7 seconds. And on the flip side, I'd get really frustrated because I felt like she was not like thinking big enough or letting me dream. And we realized that like we were just playing out the same argument over and over in kind of an unproductive way, in the way that couples, whatever, have a fight about the dishwasher, but it's like not about the dishwasher. And so Amy gave us a bunch of tools to work through that. And that was incredibly helpful, and then eventually scaled to our whole leadership team. But I think that I've talked to founders who kind of say they try to work with like a different exec coach during different eras of their like running the business, because it's helpful to get a new set of eyes, like, and so for a variety of reasons, we had kind of paused working with Amy again, truly wonderful, still chat with her. And then I hadn't gotten a new exec coach, just like hadn't gotten around to it. Things, I don't know, felt busy. I went to a dinner. Ironically, I'm going to that same dinner like in a week. So it must have been about a year ago.
Wow.
And I was talking to a founder and he was like, I love my exec coach. And I was like, oh, make an intro. And I talked to this woman, Lucinda, for like, 9 minutes on the phone. And I was just like, she seems like my type. Like, I don't know, something about this lady, like, she and I will
Is that a
vibe.
good thing or a bad thing, though? Like, do you want someone who's too similar to you? Like, could they
So
reinforce?
I think it's good because, like, if you're deeply annoyed with someone, you can't listen to them. Like, I think you gotta kind of have enough of a rapport that I'm like, and this is like unfair, but even just like kind of respect. So like when Ann and I were looking for our first coach, both of us agreed they couldn't be too woo-woo. Neither Ann or I are super woo-woo.
Yeah.
Like, we did
Totally.
not want to like start every session with like a meditation and a
Let's talk about our
gratitude.
childhood.
Yeah, exactly. Like literally, we were just like, that is not really how either of us show up. And
Are there
I
any
understand that,
coaches that really do that?
yes, there are a lot of woo-woo. And Lucinda just kind of felt more like, she's like, here's who I am. Here's kind of how I work with founders. This founder who I'd met, I was like, he seems good. So that means something to me. She had an opening. So I was like, let's do it.
Okay, so you've been doing this for about a year now.
Mm-hmm.
What tells you that this is going well and that you want to keep it going?
I have found it really nice to have a space where like, I can be pretty like honest about like what is challenging and what isn't, in a way that I'm not worried like, oh, am I oversharing or whatever like that. Just like it's really nice to be able basically be able to be selfish.
Yeah.
But actually, just to get kind of concrete, like one thing that was really useful, you and I have been talking about like how we've been navigating this shift with AI and like basically like refounding the company and how that can be like incredibly tumultuous. Like
Yeah.
the past couple of months were sort of the wildest that I've had working here since like kind of early days. Like it just felt like
Yeah.
it was like emotional. Like it's work that is like practical, but then also just has this like emotionally draining component when you feel
Yeah.
like this isn't right and I'm trying to move the ship, but like clearly
Yeah.
I'm not doing it perfectly. And so like Anne and I went and met with Lucinda in person a couple of weeks ago
Nice.
to just like try to like really get things like right and like under, and it was just so helpful. Like we walked out of that being like that was great.
So what is helpful about your interactions with an exec coach? Are you looking for people who like tell you what's what, ask you a lot of questions, guide you through the thing, just have frameworks? What stands out to you?
It's kind of all of it,
Okay.
and I think that, like, it's just nice to have someone, that in veg they use this phrase, like, pattern recognition, like, people who've just kind of seen the show a
Yeah.
lot, and so, like, one example, in the AI thing was Lucinda, I think, worked in some form of banking, basically when, like, the internet was coming of age.
Yeah.
And so when I was telling her about like, hey, it sort of feels like people are looking to us to be an expert in what AI can do for compliance. And she was like, that's what happened to me banking during the internet age. It was the best thing that could have ever happened to the business. Here's like how I leveraged that. And it's like, okay, that's really helpful because that's like actually a pretty good analogy to like what's going on. So that's like a very tactical thing. And then like I think there's just something helpful about having someone who isn't as like involved in the day to day because they can kind of zoom out, they can sort of see a little bit more. This is why board members, right? Like
Mm.
there's board members are not managers like in the company. Like you have a distinction because it's impossible to like do the day to day and then zoom out and be like big picture. It's like you can't
Yeah.
do that. Like I've spent 8 hours, today working and suddenly I'm going to zoom out. Like doesn't work that way. Like you need to either have the mindset of like I'm big picture or I operate deep. And then the last thing is yeah, like I think exec coaches are do like if they're doing a good job, do play a role in being like Roxanne. I think you're being a little lazy about this one. I think you're like putting off this hard conversation and like that's not always a conversation that most people will have with a CEO.
Interesting. I'm sort of getting like part exec coach vibes, part consultant vibes.
I think
Like
it's
what
yeah, that's what Anne and I like even in our again first go on kind of want, right? Is like
yeah.
I don't actually think I want someone who's just like I'm the how
Yeah.
you work, not what you're working on because like they're kind of related. Like sometimes I just want to talk about like a pure business problem. Like we're trying to go up market. We're
Yeah.
having this problem. What do you think?
Interesting. Okay, so for anyone who's listening in and thinking like, I wonder if I would benefit from an exec coach, and if so, I want to make sure I'm setting that up for success. What would you recommend those first few sessions look like? What should they be doing, talking about?
Well, I think you want to be really clear with your coach about like what you want to get out of it. So like, I'm trying to grow in this way.
Yeah.
Because like there are like exec coaching is like the Wild West. It's like life coaching. There's no like
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe there's certifications, but like I could hang a shingle and say I'm an exec coach. Do I know what I'm doing? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and so I think it's super important to be really clear about what you want out of it, and then to be very comfortable giving that person feedback on like, I don't think this is like what, this isn't really helping me because it kind of has to be like a two-way conversation.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Spicy question because you got to put them in there. I have talked to some HR people who, when they're, whether it's a CEO or another business stakeholder, gets an exec coach, they see it as a personal failure. Like, oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
gosh, like that's my job as your HRBP. I'm assuming, given that I still have a job, that that's not your interpretation. Why would you ever have a need for both an HR person and an exec coach?
Yeah, I mean, I would never have thought of them as like the same, but it's do you remember when we had Anna Binder of Asana CPO and she said the same thing with her CEO like using AI to get advice, and she was like at first a little like, wait, isn't that like why you come to me? So I think it's really logical, but if you zoom out, you think like I get advice from a lot of people. Like I talk to my husband all the time.
Yeah.
I less because he gets annoyed, but like I would happily talk to him more about work, and he gives
Yeah.
me advice. Like you get advice from a wide variety, board members, all of it. Um, I just don't think an exec coach and HRBP are like in any way the same, right? Like again, to the point on like an HRBP works in the business. Like that's just like very important, but very different than what an exec coach is doing, which is sort of like zooming out. You're meeting once a month, maybe like couple emails, like all of that. Like it's a really different relationship. And I think that like what an exec coach, or at least in the case of Lucinda, for example, can offer is that experience of having been a CEO like multiple times. And I'm not like, Melanie, why haven't you been the CEO? Like, what, what a gap
Yeah.
in your resume. I don't get it. It's
Yeah.
like, no, like what? And then on the flip side, like, I couldn't go to Lucinda and ask for sort of questions that are more going to be like culture of the company. Like, she's not going to have the pulse on that. So to me, they like, you can tell me if you think I'm like skirting the issue, but they almost just feel like super different.
I feel like for me, where I think an exec coach comes in really handy is that the reality is, and we've talked about this a little bit, I'm too entrenched in certain dynamics to be a true neutral third party.
Totally. I think the idea of HR being some neutral arbiter is kind of like an absurd, like, you're right up in there, like with all of us.
I
Like,
think there are some things like we recently went around and explored how one particular exercise that we had done had sort of like landed poorly within the leadership team, and that particular project I was removed from enough that I felt able to do that exercise without people having tough feelings about Melanie's biased and Melanie thinks this already, blah blah blah. But for the most part, if every exercise was one where I was a true neutral third party, I think to me it would be an indicator that I'm not entrenched enough in the business.
to yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think that's
But I
helpful. And
think the
then yeah,
last, the
go ahead.
biggest difference too is like, I'm not responsible for in any way for Lucinda or her growth. And that's just like
Yeah,
really nice to have a place that's just like, this is like, I do not have to, like none of it is my responsibility. So I can just
yeah.
be like super selfish.
Yeah, that's a great point too, because I imagine you probably, to a certain extent, always have a filter on because it's sort of like if I say this, how will it land, with Melanie? Or like, what if she then has that in the back of her mind moving
Yeah,
forward? Or
it's just like really, therapist, I think is sort of more the analogy or something
yeah.
where it's like, it feels like this is kind of a contained, safe space in a way that like nowhere in the business is that, nor should it be. Melanie, you joined Athena as an HR person, having sat through and administered plenty of, shall we say, bad compliance training. What got you excited enough about Athena to actually join this company?
Oh, it was big because let me tell you, the idea of joining a compliance training company was not exciting. Okay, let's just
You
be
didn't, as
real.
a little girl growing up, saying,
No, that was not of interest
fair,
to me. I joined despite the fact that we were a compliance training company
fair.
because you all really reeled me in. Anne, our co-founder, sent me as part of my interview process one of our training modules. So I checked it out as you do during the interview process, and it sucked me in. I had
Then she almost said
never.
it sucked, and I was like, wow, that was
No, no,
the,
no.
yeah.
No, it sucked me in. I had never thought of the fact that a training could be delivered in the medium of a comic strip. It was
Mm,
literally a comic strip of a day in the life of a woman, and how she experienced the workplace. And it was very subtle. It showed just, a couple of instances that were uncomfortable, how she
mm,
dealt with them, how she didn't. And then afterwards, it asked you some, real relatable, nuanced gray area questions.
mm.
And it was just wild to me to think, oh, I actually genuinely enjoyed that comic strip. I would have read it on my own. And by the way, this was part of the compliance training requirement for harassment prevention. That was pretty cool.
I love that. A good reason to check Athena out.
All right, I feel like I've done a lot of interviewing. Let's switch it up. Over to your question.
Okay, my question is like super switching gears. which is so there this weekend were like no kings protests
Yeah.
across the US, but but far from I mean the first time even this brand of protest has happened. What are your thoughts on like, I think companies have really switched their perspective in terms of like employee activism.
Yeah.
Do you have a general perspective on like, I mean, and even like, do we have an internal policy on or
Mm,
communication? Like, I know, for example, we've talked with employees about what, how to think about their LinkedIn, because I think that's actually the most like, I don't follow anyone on Instagram or Facebook. Good God, no, thank you.
mhm.
In my mind, that's kind of your business as long as you're not like in any way referencing Athena as part of a
Yeah.
post about you think that we should all be saving the whales or something.
I mean, we should be
Um,
saving the whales, but okay.
and you are free to say that as long as you're not saying that that's the stance of Athena. I like the whales too, so
Okay.
there we have great overlap. But anyway, thoughts, discuss.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a fan of overly policing everything that an employee does. I really like your perspective on treat employees like adults and then they will act like adults. And then if they don't, then you handle it. But I will say that for me, it comes down to like, as long as somebody's behavior and rhetoric isn't in direct conflict with the values that the company puts out there publicly, I think it's fine. Like freedom of speech is a real thing. And as much as I personally don't love putting my own personal opinions out there. Not that I think, being the hippie vegan that I am, people are too confused about where I may or may not stand. But even so, I personally, as an HR person, it's like, okay, you know what it makes me think of? Quick detour here. Have you ever heard like in HR land, there's a lot of people will talk about like friends at work. That's a joke. Like you can't have friends at work and be in HR. Um, yeah, what's your perspective on that actually before I share if I agree or disagree?
I guess I don't have a perspective about in HR. I think I am generally pro some separation, especially I guess CEO is actually kind of the same thing, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like I think that whatever, I may have to like let go of someone. And I was talking to someone who said a different startup, and she said I was just like getting to know her a bit, and she was saying like their startup had gone through like some really wild times, and she was like, the worst possible thing was I had to let go of like a friend of like 15 years who I had like recruited to this company, and we didn't
Yeah.
do this big riff. And it's like that just sounds awful. Like that is
Yeah.
my, like nightmare, because
Yeah.
it's just hard enough to like work when, you're sort of like viewing everyone through the lens of work. And then if you're like, this is someone who I was at their wedding or whatever, and you're like, oh my God, this just sounds awful. So like
Awful.
in general, I'm sort of pro like having a bit of separation. That being said, like that is really different when you work at a large company and like I don't know. So like friends at work, like yes, I think you can I feel like I have very meaningful relationships with people here that even if, they were to leave or whatever, like I
Yeah.
would stay in touch. But I think that like on balance, I'm not I don't think it's amazing to be like drinking buddies with everyone at work.
I would agree with that. What changed it for me was as I got more senior. So the more authority and power and responsibility and scope of responsibility that I had, the
Yes.
harder and more uncomfortable I felt being genuine friends with people at work. And listen, when I say friends, I'm not saying not friendly. I'm not saying that I won't go to an event with somebody, but to your point, do I want to be going to somebody's wedding? Do I want to be hanging out with them on the weekends? Probably not, just because it makes it that much harder when you have to make a tough business decision. One, because you're a little bit biased, it just is what it is. And two, even if you get past that bias, now it's a much harder conversation with that person. So, with that said, circling back to the whole, what employees do outside of work, for the most part, I am like, I don't need to police it, do what you want. But I do also think it's true that, like, if you are if you're embodying like hate speech, if your behavior is violent, it doesn't matter what political opinion or affiliation you have. It's more whatever it is it in conflict with our overall values as a company? And if it is, then like, yeah, quite frankly, that is going to get you into trouble. And I've seen many employees lose their job because of that.
Do we have a specific policy?
No, no, we just have our company
Just kind
values.
of
And
a
so if an employee
act
were to
like an
ever
adult.
Yeah, like I think if an employee goes out to one of the No Kings protests and they're peacefully protesting, as is like their right, and
Yeah.
as you know, I don't see a problem with it. The minute that, an employee starts getting violent or starts, using, yelling slurs at somebody or anything like that, then yeah, we're probably going to have a problem.
Yeah, to me, I feel like LinkedIn is the place where it like most actually intersects, right? Because it's like literally your job is the most relevant like thing that you see, right? Like, it's like Melanie, Athena, and that's where so like if you were posting, hey, like we'll take it off of No Kings and you
Yeah,
stick with the whales.
the whales.
Like come join me for this like whatever anti-whaling protest on
Yeah,
Friday and like
yeah.
that started to become a big part of your LinkedIn. I could see that being an issue just because it'd be like,
Interesting. Why?
right?
Like,
Like,
what would be? No, I'm genuinely like, what would be the grounds for any sort of action on the employer side?
well, my understanding, and obviously we should have asked this when we had an employment counsel
Yeah,
on it. So
we
this is our
should.
next
We'll
employment
invite
counsel
one back.
question.
Part two. Yeah.
My understanding is that we are free, at will employer. We are free to let someone go for any reason, whether it's I didn't like your Save the Whales post or,
Sure.
whatever. So long as that thing isn't I don't like
A
that you're a
protected
woman. Right.
class.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I think like let's just say hypothetically that a big chunk of Athena's business was with the whaling industry. And I was like,
Oh, I
Melanie,
see. Okay.
like, you like here you are kind of like taking a stance on an issue that our customers are gonna have a problem with. Whaling's kind of an absurd one, but you can kind of see where this would go. Like, I don't know if there was some like proposition on the ballot, and they'd be
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Melanie, you keep posting on this on LinkedIn. It is confusing because the next thing you post is an Athena webinar. So it looks like you're saying Athena supports proposition, blah, 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 which like by definition is going to have at least two
Yeah,
sides.
yeah, yeah.
Right? Like, I
No,
don't know,
I
do you
would
think
agree
I'm
with. No, no, no. I totally agree. I wasn't thinking about it from that perspective, but absolutely, if it was a place where a lot of our customers are going to see this, and the company has chosen intentionally to not take a stance or has taken a different
which is the
stance,
vast majority of issues, right? Like
yeah,
Athena's not out there being like,
totally.
here's our stance on the whales, the
Yeah,
possums, and whatever, something
yeah.
like
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think step one would be let's have a conversation with the employee.
totally.
Step two would be okay, they continue to, insist on X, Y, and Z in a professional setting where, our customers are going to see that. Sure, I think that's absolutely right. You might at that point run into issues. I've definitely I've had both like at Athena and at past companies examples of, maybe somebody's doing, genuinely just
Yeah,
trying to do a
what's the
good.
like wildest example of this you've seen?
I mean, no,
Or
I
like
can't
it
say the
gone wrong?
wildest ones because I've had to fire employees for things that they put on social media that were
Could
just
you
like
like scrub
abhorrent.
it enough? Like
Like racist comments, just like unacceptable,
on
especially.
their personal like Instagram or something?
But people surfaced it to like a colleague, flagged it to us. We saw it, and once we're made aware of it,
What do you
can't.
say? Do you say like this thing came to our attention, it's against our values, or do you just say like your time here is
No, no,
done?
you're very direct. We in my experience, I've always been very direct. Like this was surfaced to our attention. This is against our company values. We are not comfortable, or like we refuse to tolerate this sort of behavior, and so we don't allow employee, or we don't, we our values are not aligned. We're not going to partner with employees who embody these values, and so we're going to have to part ways. Just
Mm.
very, very direct. Yeah.
Have the employees fought back?
No, no, the ones where we went so far as to terminate, it would have been very hard. It was like truly abhorrent, like language. That I don't know how they could have. I guess maybe now we're in a
I was gonna
different.
say, like, I would love to get an employment counsel on here to like learn a little more about this. My understanding is like as a business, you are very much within your rights to sort of even if it's more like you just keep posting like typo laden stuff and this is embarrassing and like stop doing this on LinkedIn, like, something that's not political. But I think it's like it does feel really different now where like I could see that the company would maybe just like want to be like, we're terminating employment, the
Yeah.
end, no reasons.
I mean that is possible. It really, I think, we had someone on the podcast recently who was an employment lawyer, funnily enough, and what I really sort of what she said around everything being gray area lands with me. I could see arguments in both directions, right? The less you say, the more that people are going to fill in the gaps with assumptions. The more you say, the more that somebody might turn that into something that they can use against you. Anybody could sue anybody at any time. And so the risk is always there. It's just a question of which risk do you feel is lower and that you stand by.
Yeah. I guess in that same conversation we talked about like parental leave, right? And like do you text
Yeah.
somebody who's on parental leave? And I think they're all just kind of judgment calls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
Okay. Well, are you gonna
yeah.
go to any Save the Whales butterflies protests this weekend?
I'm not planning to, but I'll let you know if I change my mind. Okay, and I'll take some
Don't.
pictures. I'll send it to you so that you're aware, and then you can
Yeah.
decide if you're okay with it, if it's pro or against Athena's values. We'll figure it out.
Sometimes
We'll
you
figure it
get,
out.
when you get an email or something, you're just like, I wish I didn't. Why did you send that to me? Like, I just didn't need to know.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Like that was TMI.
Yeah, like
Didn't need to
we
have
were
that
all better
information.
off before we knew this thing. Yeah.
Did you feel that way when I shared with you that I am now taking a sewing class and I'm so excited about
No, I
it?
love this. I love that for you.
I can't wait. I'm gonna
Is it a
be
group class?
It's a group class, small group, 5 people max,
Oh,
and
that's really fun.
they're just gonna teach me to alter all my clothes. I'm so excited. I'm gonna make everything just snatch it up, It's gonna be great.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm
I love this.
excited.
I mean, I'm an occasional knitter, so this is like kind of in
Yes!
my on
Although
my
I
own.
haven't ever seen receipts, so I don't know how true this is.
Oh,
Where are your
I
knitting
will,
materials?
now I'm gonna I will send you some photos. I can be a very good knitter, but turns out running a company and having
Mhm.
kids means that, I started a hat that I meant to give to Anne's newborn, who is
Oh,
now very much not a
it's not
newborn.
gonna fit.
The
Yeah.
hat is still halfway done. I'm like, do
Oh.
I finish it for my kid? Like,
Why don't you
um,
knit on the podcast? Why don't you knit while we're talking to each other? That could be your
I don't think I'm
thing.
a good enough when I was doing like a big blanket or something and it was just like a,
Oh,
very
yeah,
repetitious, but if anything is like requires any complexity whatsoever, I feel like the
fair
like
enough.
amount of brain cells I have right now need to
Yeah.
go all to one thing. And if they're like in like I made a
Yeah.
carrot cake somewhat recently and it sounds like a joke, but it was not. I almost put it in the oven without the carrots. Like
No.
again,
Okay.
it's just
Well,
like I'm doing my best and I like grated the carrots and I put them in a bowl and I put the bowl kind of on the side and then I was like, wait
honestly,
a
you
minute.
can't even taste the carrots in carrot cake. They're like a garnish,
No, they do serve an essential function.
Okay, all right.
I
I'm
would
trying to
not
give you an
recommend
out,
carrot cake without
Roxanne. I'm
carrots.
trying to be here for you.
It was bad. Point is, Melanie, this has been a good talk.
Good talk.
I've been waiting my whole life to say this. If you liked this episode, please like, subscribe, and follow us on LinkedIn because that's the only social media platform where we hang out.